Gentleman, Indiana, for purpose, the gentleman rise. Gentleman is recognized.
You know, I've been here in this chamber for a long time, and I was here in the minority back in the early 80s when my colleagues over there were running this place. And they ran this place for 40 years. For 40 years they ran this place, and they ran the budget right into the ground and raised taxes and spent more money, but they became reformed, like some ladies of the evening are reformed. And they changed their spots and said, we've got to do something about the spending in the Congress because the Republicans took over for 12 years, and they didn't like the way we ran this place. They said we were spending too much money, and they went on a tirade time after time saying that they needed to be back in power because they were going to be fiscally responsible, and they were going to control spending, and they were going to do everything they did not do for 40 years when they had control. I used to walk past my colleagues' offices when we were in charge, and they had big signs out in front of their offices. Today, the national debt went up this much, and today, spending went up this much, and it's all because of the Republicans, they were implying. Well, they got control back, and what's happened? They've authorized $105.5 billion in new spending over the next 5 years. And they complain because we want to cut $1.241 million out of this bill. Just $1.241 million. Not billions, but million. And you don't like that. And we're keeping the spending at last year's level. My colleagues on this side of the aisle do not want to vote for a balanced budget amendment. They'll tell you they want to balance the budget, but when a balanced budget amendment comes to the floor, they almost all vote against it because they know where their power lies, and that's in spending and taxes. Spending and taxes, and that's what they're going to do. They want the tax cuts that President Bush and this Congress in the early part of the Bush administration put in place. They want those tax cuts to expire. And in Indiana alone, that means that most of the people in my state will have a $2,200 per person tax increase because the tax cuts expire. They want those to expire. They want to spend more money like they're doing right now. They want to extend spending over the next 5 years by $105 billion. And yet they're the fiscally responsible people in this body. I'd just like to say to my colleagues and anybody else that's paying attention that they really ought to look at history. They really ought to look at what the Democrats said before they took power, and then they ought to look very seriously at what they're doing right now. They want more taxes. They want more spending. They want more control. And that's exactly what they did the 40 years they had control before the Republicans took office in the Bush administration. There's no question that when we were in charge, we spent too much money. But compared to them, we are pikers. And the American people are going to find out once again how much these people spend and what big spenders they are and what big taxers they are. It's going to happen. Hopefully the American people will get the message and put the right people back in charge.